land in which we meet and pay our respects to their elders, both present and past. Now, is there any apologies? We haven't heard from Jamie, but we'll just assume that he's going to hook up in a minute. Disclosures of interest. Anybody got a disclosure of interest? Councillor McInerney wants to say something, obviously. He's not muted.
I'm just going to say all I've got is the minutes on the screen. I can't see anybody. I don't know what's going on.
So you should
just tap your screen.
Is your camera switched on?
Yep.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I've got.
You're on mute now, Ken. Switch it off if you want to say something.
I've got to turn it on. All I can see is a little small picture of you and Anna and myself, and nothing else. All I've got is the minutes as they're running down. I'm running them on a laptop separate, as I was told last time. So I'm not
that's probably as much as you're going to see.
So we're sharing the screen with the minutes as we do in other council meetings. Just because we are doing that, it pushes everybody else a little bit out of the picture. So that's the prominent screen. So you'll see, or should see, the people who are talking at any one time and potentially yourself. So you won't be able to see everyone while we're sharing the screen with the minutes. And so that's just so we can, as we do in other council meetings, keep track of as we go through motions.
Just a question. I thought we were supposed to be sharing the minutes on a separate laptop or computer and just using the iPad for vision of the other councillors and you and Graham.
The agenda is what you'll have on your computer as you would in a normal council meeting, and the minutes that we are just writing as we're going right now is generally what we have up on the big screen in the council meeting. But because we don't have that big screen at the moment, that's why we're sharing them as we are writing them.
I haven't got all this. I haven't got all the two, because Aaron's up there, so there's 2, 4, 6, 7. I haven't got Robert.
He's there.
Very good. How are we going to organise that?
Yeah. We can't.
Miles, you haven't got your microphone muted, so do you want to say something? Your disclosure of interest?
Oh, well, it's not really disclosure of interest, Graham. I was just going to say, Anna, are we going to have the agenda on this the same way as the minutes? Because if not, I'll have to get another iPad organised.
We can only have one window open with the minutes.
Right. So when we do the agenda for the meeting, are we going to have that on the iPad?
Yes, that's what you were going to have on your iPad or a separate computer.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Jamie, you hooked up there?
Yes, I am, Graham.
Do you? If you got any disclosures of interest?
No.
Right. We'll mute your microphone, and if you wasn't listening before, when I see on the screen that you've got your microphone not muted, I assume you wanted to speak, so I'll call you up. Got that?
Thanks. I just had trouble finding where my icon was, and it has slipped onto a different page, so that's why I'm late.
No worries.
Okay.
No more disclosure of interest. We'll keep moving on. There's public forums and deputations. Nothing. Item 4 is a confirmation of the minutes, and there's a recommendation there that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 14th of April and the minutes of the confidential meeting held on the 14th of April to be read and confirmed as accurate record and the proceedings of the accurate record and of the preceding meetings. Somebody like to move that?
Yes, I'll move that.
Moved by Maureen, to seconder.
I'm happy to second.
Who's that?
Liz.
I didn't catch who was the seconder.
Liz.
Liz, was it? Very good, Liz. All those in favour, put your hand up. I can't see everybody, but we'll go like that.
Yeah.
Say yes or something like that.
Yes.
It's going to be hard to do it if we got your microphone muted.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Yes.
So the minutes of the 14th of April, we got pages 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and the confidential minutes are 18, 19, and 20 and 21. Anything arising from those minutes? If not, we go to item 5, and it's matters laid on the table from the previous meeting. Nothing. And now we have communications from the Mayor. And Mayor's report for the 12th of May 2020. This has been the most difficult, disappointing, frustrating month for me in the 5.5 years as Mayor, and not all attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic. It has been frustrating because there is no contact or communication with elected members. I've been having Zoom meetings every Friday with other mayors in the Limestone Coast. Anzac Day ceremonies have been cancelled, which was very disappointing. Friday the 17th of April, the LCLGA conducted a board meeting via Zoom. On Tuesday the 28th of April, I attended a LCLGDG, that's Economic Development Group meeting via Zoom, and then in the afternoon we had an informal gathering on the budget using Microsoft Teams. Friday the 1st of May, the LCLGA presented their business plan to the LCLGA board and the CEOs via Zoom. We're all anticipating a quick end to the lockdown so our district can get back to normal, and I'd like to move that my report be accepted. So would you like to second that?
I'll second it, Miles.
Second by Miles. All those in favour? Yep, thank you.
Yes.
Good. Moving on.
Yes.
Thanks, thank you. Moving on, reports from members, and I'll go through the list like we normally sit at council. So Ken, you're first, and you'll have to unmute your microphone.
All right. I don't have a lot other than just to make sure that we didn't miss the opportunity. We actually recorded an Anzac Day service as though we would normally perform it. So that was recorded beforehand, and then on the day we actually attended at the cenotaph with only a half a dozen, so we met with all the requirements. We had the service broadcast by 5TCB, and apparently that was widely received, and a lot of people did hear it, and they did take the opportunity to get at the front of their properties with a candle or a torch, and we laid some wreaths. So other than that, that's about all that I did. Thank you.
Good, thanks, Ken. Jamie, or Councillor Jackson, sorry.
No, all clear for me, Graham.
Councillor Langley.
Yes, I'd just like to report on the 21st of April, we had Tatiara Masters Games virtual challenge judging via Teams. It was instigated by the committee on the Thursday when the games were to happen. It was really aimed to put a smile back on people's faces. The aim was to share a photo or small video and how people would have participated in the games. We were really overwhelmed with the response. Over those 5 days, we had 40 entries coming in, from photos to video clips, from locals and beyond. I'd like to thank all the elected members and staff that participated. We even had an international entry from the United Kingdom. And then our winners were announced on the Tuesday. Because of so many entries, we had 2 categories and some honourable mentions, and a medal ceremony was viewed. And that was 446 people viewed into that clip. So that was fantastic. It created an overwhelming lot of online interest. We had some clips or some of the entries viewed by over 400 times. Just the UK one alone, the guy from there, he posted his on Twitter, and we had 3,033 views just from that video. So it really was a very worthwhile thing to do, and a great way to celebrate what could have been. And that followed up with an article in the Border Watch. And I'd also just like to mention, last week the Regional ACO program capital grants were announced. There was $20 million there for grabs across the nation. Across Barker, we had 9 shows gets 1.2 million worth of money, and I'd like to congratulate the Keith and District Show. They were awarded $280,000 for a power generator and trailer and their multi-purpose community hub. Bordertown also put an application in, and I'd like to congratulate everyone that was involved with that. Also, I'd like to thank the Tatiara District Council and all the staff and management during this global pandemic. Well done to everyone. It's been really great to hear the comments around the district and the proactive help and everything offered by council. It's also good to see our playgrounds open back up last week and our libraries opening tomorrow. So well done to all. Thank you. That's my report.
Good. Thank you, Councillor Langley. Councillor Penniman?
No.
Councillor Edwards?
Just reporting we did our Anzac Day service at home, following with virtual candles. We were set up on the phones and followed on the ABC app to get our girls a Girl Guides badge for participating in Anzac Day. So that's all I have.
Good, thank you. Councillor Hanneman?
Nothing. No, nothing to report.
Councillor, where's the next one along? Oliver?
No, nothing to report, thanks.
Councillor Gusens?
Yes, I've got, we had a few put out candles on Anzac morning and a few wreaths were placed up at the Soldiers Park in Mandela. And we just raised the flag with just a couple of people there, but still nice to acknowledge, and different people popped in it through the day. Also next Sunday, we're doing a hashtag Mandela driveway project where we have Gav Blacker from Pathway, who's a professional photographer, and he's going to come around and take photos of different people in Mandela on their porch, just so that we are capturing this time in our lives, what it's like to be in isolation, and hope to put an exhibition together with some of the photos that we've got there. But it's just a nice way to capture this time in our lives, because I'm sure it will always be a marker from before the virus and after, and we're just capturing this moment while we're in isolation. And that's it. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Councillor Gusens. Councillor Mock?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Right, the next thing on our agenda is questions on notice. Neil, questions without notice. Councillor Hanneman?
Councillor, I've had a question from a ratepayer. Why has the Bordertown industrial estate got a sign which says land available? He wanted to know why that was at Bordertown and there's not one at Keith. Could we put a sign on there to say that it's land available at Keith just as much as it's land available at Bordertown, was his question.
The only one I can get to answer that is Rocky, but those questions should go straight to Rocky. There's no reason to bring them through council. So Rocky, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. In actual fact, I think there is a sign in Keith which still says land for sale, even though we haven't created any allotments. So in answer to your question, we've got no land available at Keith at this point in time, which we are basically, I think we're engaging consultants shortly to start that process. And in Bordertown, there's 6 allotments available. But I think you'll find there is a sign outside of Keith going in off Stirling Road.
Righto, that might be.
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Mock?
There is a sign on the corner of the Tatiara Seeds allotment, and it does say that a lot of land's available, so it's quite contrary to the person commenting to Mr. Hanneman.
Councillor Hanneman. Righto, thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Hanneman. Moving on. Petitions nil, motions on notice nil, motions without notice. Councillor Mock?
Yes, I do have 2. I suggest we might put the first one, the complicated dossier one, aside for the moment until we get to that item. So I'd like to move the one about the lease fees.
Yes, go ahead.
That Tatiara District Council include the lease fees proposed for leasing roads and reserves in the public consultation process.
You want to speak to that?
There will be an item today which is probably brought that to my mind again. I had trouble bringing it getting it through last time, but I'm moving it again now.
Right, is there a seconder to that motion? I can't see everybody's at the moment. Councillor Mock, you have spoken, that's right. There's no seconder to the motion?
At the moment, everyone is muted.
Councillor Jackson?
Yeah, look, I'm not particularly sure what the reason is, but I'm happy to go ahead with it and make people vote on it anyway. I don't see why we shouldn't advertise what the lease fees is so that people are aware of what particular fees are, unless we have a sort of varying scenarios that require a different amount of fees. I'm not sure if that's the case or not.
Can we ask Rocky about an explanation here?
Kingsley.
Kingsley, is it? Or Kingsley? Can you unmute Kingsley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can understand why Councillor Mock may want that included, but I'm not quite sure in the purpose, because we make sure that all people in the community that have an interest in that piece of land has the right to object or the right to obtain information, and that's quite clearly stated in the advertisement if there's any concerns. So we're happy to put it in, there's not a problem, but I'm just concerned about what the major reason would be in there when there's already an opportunity for them to contact council staff.
I'll go to the CEO.
Could I just ask a question of clarification? We currently have two different rates. So we have $11 a hectare for road and water reserves, and then we have a commercial rate where it's land, for example, the lease that we considered recently for Nigel Fuss. So are you asking that all of those leases be separately listed with the lease value for that particular lease, or those rates?
May I answer?
Yes, Councillor.
My proposal is that, for example, today's one, which is $11 a hectare, should be included in the public consultation process. Some of the land that is leased for $11 a hectare is worth about $8,000 a hectare. Some of it is native veg and would provide a recluse area for people. It's not necessarily low value land. So the one item that's missing from the public consultation process is the fees that are paid by the lessee.
Right, you've closed the debate, Councillor Mock. I'll ask everybody to vote. Now, we might do this a bit different. I'll ask you to unmute all your microphones and say yes or no. Can we do that? Still don't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we're right now. All those in favour?
Yes.
Say yes.
Yes.
Against?
No.
Right,
No.
we better have a count up here.
But can we suggest that just those that have said no stay unmuted so we can see who that is?
Right, you heard the CEO. The ones that said no, unmute. So that's Councillor Penniman, Councillor Edwards, Councillor McInerney, Councillor Oliver.
That's 4.
That's 4 against, and there must be 5 for the motion. That's Councillor Langley, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Gersens, Councillor Hanneman. There's a few things going on here on the screen. I'm not trying to...
Yeah, people, sorry, it appears some have changed. So currently we've got Councillor Edwards, Councillor McInerney, Councillor Gersens and Councillor Oliver and Councillor Mock unmuted, which would be the no's. I don't think...
No, he's Mock, get the Mock for it.
I thought we'd gone on to the yeses, sorry.
No,
Can we start again?
all right.
All those that want to vote yes, unmute your microphone, can you?
All those that what?
All those that are voting for the motion, unmute your microphone.
Okay.
So there's councillor,
Which is the opposite of what you had before.
yep, it is. It's councillor Jackson, councillor Guzens, councillor Hanneman, councillor Mock, which is 4.
4. So we have 4 for the motion.
And 5 against, there must be.
So can we now have those against the motions unmute themselves and those for the motion mute themselves? They've got councillor Penniman, sorry, councillor Langley.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I could have confused things there. I'm for the motion.
Could we just have those that have voted against the motion, please unmute themselves so we can just count who we have against the motion.
Councillor Langley, you're for the motion, so you mute your mic.
So we've got councillor Penniman, councillor Edwards, councillor McInerney and councillor Oliver against the motion. So it's 5-4. Have we missed anyone?
So the motion is carried 5-4.
Excuse me, Mayor, Councillor Edwards, can I ask a question?
Yes. Who's it directed to?
The Mayor.
Right.
Or Councillor Mock. I just want to clarify the motion, Councillor Mock, it got closed a bit too quick before I could ask the question. All that this is passing is that we put the $11 a hectare fee in, not the individual leasees, what they're paying. Is that correct?
To my knowledge, that is correct.
Cool. Thank you.
Right, the voting is 5-4, and that's carried. Moving on, reports of committees, and 13.1 is the minutes of the Plant and Machinery Committee meeting held on May the 7th, and the recommendation there, the minutes were received, and point 2, the Plant and Machinery Committee recommend, and I won't read all those out. So if somebody like to move that, please.
Moved by Councillor Hanna.
I've got Councillor Penniman unmuted there, so
Yeah,
she's moved it.
I was going to move it.
Yep. Want to speak to it?
No.
And the other one is Councillor Hanneman. You're seconding it?
Yes, I am.
You want to speak to it?
Thank you.
You do or you don't? I couldn't quite catch it. Right?
No, thank you. I don't. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Unmute your microphone if you want to.
Yes, please.
Councillor Mock.
I cannot see all of that motion there, but some of the data about the loader, about the number of hours and the number of kilometres is a bit wrong.
That's not on the motion.
No, I can't read the motion in front of me. It's not scrolled down far enough.
That's.
Mandy, would you mind to scroll a bit?
That's fine. But anyway, while I've got you, in the detail, the hours on the loader are printed incorrectly. Thank you.
That must be in the minutes because we haven't got that in the recommendation.
That's
so.
Fine.
So, any further speakers for or against the motion? Councillor McInerney, you're unmuted. Do you want to say something?
No, I'm sorry. I should have been muted, but I'm getting a bit confused at the moment with all what's happening. So my apologies.
We're having a struggle here too. So there's no further discussion. We will go to vote at the recommendation, and all those that want to vote for the motion, unmute your microphones. That looks like the majority of them, so that is carried. We've got 2 lots of minutes in here, so you'll have to move over a bit. And now, number 14 on the agenda is informal gatherings. Nothing. Oh no, sorry, that's the recommendation there that the notes of the informal gathering held on the 14th of April and the 28th of April be received.
No, excuse me, Mr Mayor, can we go back? We've only received the minutes of the Plant Machinery Committee. The second one is the second motion to that. There's two motions there. Plant Machinery, the first one was just to move the minutes. The second one is for the adopting the budget.
Yeah, sorry. I always thought that was one motion, but anyhow, it's not. There's the second part, as you heard Mandy there. The second part of the motion is point 2, and that's council adopt the attached plant machinery replacement budget, draft 2, and the council provide more time and further assessment replacement options for the plant number 5551 jet patcher as follows: replace like for like with trade or without trade, subject to the result of a keep the current truck only and refit with turntable or water tank or both. Somebody like to move that motion?
I can move that.
Mayor.
Councillor McInerney, you're moving it? You're the only one unmuted that I can see.
Councillor
Yes.
Mock.
You want to speak to it?
No, I did have a talk with Erin early on in the day, and we did discuss this particular issue, and I think it's quite valuable that we go ahead and do this.
Right. Councillor Mock, are you seconding?
Yes, please.
Want you to speak to it?
No, thanks.
Any it's open for discussion? Anybody, any speakers? If there's no speakers, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, unlock your microphone. And that looks unanimous. That motion is carried. Now we go to informal gatherings, and we've got the recommendation notes of the informal gathering held on the 14th of April and the 28th of April be received. Somebody move that?
I'm happy to do that.
Councillor Guzens has moved it. Is there a seconder? I can't see everybody, I'm sorry.
I will.
Councillor Oliver. Oh, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Jackson is seconding it. Any speakers? If not, we'll put it to vote. Unlock your microphones if you're voting yes. Move it up.
That is
That's unanimous. That is carried. Now we go to item 15 on the agenda is correspondence, which we have nil. 16 is reports of officers for decision and the Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the first report is about the SAROC strategic plan and draft annual business plan for 2021. Obviously, this is something that comes to council every year, and SAROC has invited us to provide feedback on both their strategic plan and their draft annual business plan. Attached to the report were both the invitation to provide feedback, the strategic plan, and also the consultation document. I have made some suggestions in the consultation document for feedback that we might like to provide, but it is of course open for comment and alterations from elected members. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions to the CEO? If none, there's a recommendation there that council does not propose any changes to the SAROC strategic plan and provide feedback on the SAROC draft annual business plan as detailed in the attachments. Unlock your microphone if you're voting yes.
Do we need somebody to move it first?
Oh, sorry.
I'm happy to move that.
I'll move it.
Councillor Evans, sorry, I'm getting ahead of things, aren't I?
Councillor Evans moved it and Councillor McInerney.
Councillor McInerney, you seconding? Good.
Yes, that's correct.
Any speak?
I don't want to speak to it.
Good. Voting now, all those in favour? Unlock your microphone. And that means it's unanimous, so that's carried. Sorry if this paper's making a noise here. 16.2 is the fraud, corruption, misconduct and maladministration prevention. CEO.
Thank you. This is just an update to our fraud, corruption, misconduct and maladministration policy. Obviously, the Public Interest Disclosure Act came into force last year. We last reviewed the policy in 2018. So another review was really due to incorporate the changes made from the PID Act. One of the other key changes in the revised policy is that the responsibilities are now detailed in the appendix rather than in the text of the policy, and in general it's been updated to reflect the modelled policy from the LGA. I've provided both policies there for council information. There was too many changes to do track changes, so I had to make it two different policies to not create unnecessary confusion. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions to the CEO? If not, there's a recommendation there that council adopt the draft fraud, corruption, misconduct and maladministration policy revision of the 12th of May 2020. Somebody like to move that? Councillor Langley? Councillor Oliver? Councillor Oliver is a seconder. Councillor I've got Councillor Guzens down. So are you seconding it, Councillor Guzens?
Yes.
Right. Ready to vote? All those in... Oh, well, it's open for discussion first. If anybody want to say something about it. If you want to vote yes, unlock your microphone.
That is everyone.
That's everybody. That's carried. Thank you. Can we?
We can't get all of them. There's too many of us attending.
We can't sort of see everybody's name on the screen. It goes in alphabetical order, and we've got Aaron Hillier and Judy Molyneux mixed up, so we can't get the 9 councillors on the screen. So sorry about that. Now we got 16.3 is the monthly financial statement, and over to the finance manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll present my monthly financial report for April. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions to finance manager through the CEO? Oh, through the manager as well. We're getting feedback here from somewhere. Any questions to the finance manager?
Yes, please.
Councillor Mott.
Item 1290, which is other health services, it shows that we have expended $13,000 exactly. Is that correct?
Can you answer, Judy?
1290. Yes, that is correct. That's right, sorry, Robert. It's an internal transfer of funds for the vehicle hire. So all vehicles that are administrative vehicles are $13,000 per year.
So is that the Red Cross vehicle?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, there's a recommendation there the monthly finance comparison statement for April 2020 be received.
I'll move that.
Move to Councillor Mock. Wish to speak to it?
No, thank you.
Councillor Penniman, you've got your microphone on. Are you seconding it?
Yes, I'll second that. Thank you.
Wish to speak to it?
No.
Any further speakers? If not, all those, unlock your microphone, all those in favour?
That's everyone.
That's everybody, so that is carried. Thank you. 16.4 is a lease agreement with the Bordertown Keith Guiding Club Incorporated, and there's a recommendation there.
Mayor, I just had a question before we go to that, please.
Who's it directed to?
Kingsley. In the preamble before this, it's we talked that the leases and licenses these days are 5 years, but we're talking about 42 years. Can you just clarify that? It happens a bit further on too, a couple of pages, where we have a license for 21 years, but I just thought everything had been changed back to 5.
I think you'll find that the legislation allows for there to be up to 21 years, but there's always been a recommendation for us to do it within the annual business plan or the long-term financial plans that council embraces as part of the annual business environment. So it was changed to 5 years, which is almost a perpetual lease for many of these agreements. So it was recommended by the LGA, if anything, that we should make sure that we have an agreement that reflects moderation and change on both parties to negotiate any movements in the agreements to make them a bit more flexible.
Thank you, Kingsley. Any further questions before we go to a recommendation? If not, we move to the recommendation. It's got a 5-year lease agreement between Tatiara District Council and Bordertown Keith Gliding Club. In that recommendation, Councillor Jackson's moved. You wish to speak to it?
No, it's fine, thank you.
Second, Councillor Edwards has got his unmuted.
Correct. Don't want to speak to it.
You don't want to speak to it. You're seconding the motion. Any further speakers?
Yes, please.
Councillor Mock.
In this case, this one would not have the fee attached because it's not a road or a reserve, in my intent anyway.
Do we use Kingsley on that one? Yeah, Kingsley, just clarify that, can you please?
Yes, it's one of those agreements like many we have that are like peppercorn lease. And so we don't impose a charge unless they have a hangar on site, which we would tend to charge at, which isn't the case.
Thank you.
Any further questions? It's been moved and seconded. Ready to vote? All those in favour, unlock your microphone. Yep, that's unanimous. That's carried. Thank you. 16.5 is Ross Avenue Footpath, and there's a recommendation there that the council reallocate 40,000 budget for the construction of footpath on Bruce Avenue and carry out the consultation with the residents located in the area of Goretta Avenue, Lestrange Avenue, Granville Avenue, as to better ascertain the public value of the footpath along Ross Avenue for consideration in future budgets. Would somebody like to move that recommendation?
Councillor Jackson, I'm happy to move that.
Right.
Or unless or second it, whichever I came in.
I'll move that.
Well, we've got Councillor Jackson's moved it.
Councillor Oliver has
and Councillor Oliver has seconded. What I should have done is let Aaron have a bit of a say here as well. So we'll go to you now, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sounds like probably everything's covered off in the report, but I'll just make a couple of comments. Obviously, the design was completed and we're programmed to construct the footpath before the end of the financial year. During the design phase, there was consideration given to the side of the road the footpath would be constructed on. The western side, or the Adelaide side, was considered the most appropriate as allowed more room to separate the path from the carriageway. So from, I suppose, a design perspective, it was considered the safest option. And then we sent out letters to all the residents along Ross Avenue advising of the project and also the proposed location of the footpath. Obviously, after that, we received a bit of negative feedback, particularly with expressing concerns with the footpath being located on this proposed side. Subsequently, we met on site with the Keith councillors and a few of the residents that expressed concern. And I suppose the overwhelming consensus from there was that they didn't see a lot of public value in the proposed footpath. It is unclear whether the residents up near Goretta Avenue and Lancaster Street are in favour of it. It's not something we really know, but based on the response that we got back from the consultation that we did, there is a recommendation there obviously to reallocate that money and carry out some additional consultation. Happy to answer any questions.
It's open for discussion.
Councillor Hanneman here. Hanneman.
Yeah, right, Councillor Hanneman, yep.
If we consult with the residents in Goretti Avenue, Lestrange up there, and then they do want the footpath, do we then, so we've allocated the money now, we may not be able to allocate unless these other residents want the footpath. So once we've allocated the money, where do we get the money for the next one from?
It'll be in next year's budget, if then. Can you explain, Aaron, please?
Yeah, look, in the end, there is going to be some additional money, cash left over in the budget for us to carry out capital works. So if council saw that it was something they really wanted to still move ahead with, I'm sure that they'd be able to find the money to do the work.
Right, Councillor Penniman had a microphone unlocked.
Yes, I've got mine unlocked because when I lock it, I just lose all sound completely. I can't even hear you, Graham. So.
Oh, hell.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Well, if you want to speak, Councillor Penniman, just leave it on and you speak up and we'll try and work it out like that.
Yeah, well, that's what I've come to the conclusion I have to do.
Councillor Jackson, you had your microphone unlocked?
Yes, just going on regarding Ross Avenue footpath. I don't think this one's going to particularly worry anybody if it's delayed for 1 or 2 or so years, because of those that were there, it seemed to be a very low priority for them anyway. So I think it's a case of when it gets done, it'll be fine if need be at all.
Right, Councillor Jackson, you've moved and closed the debate. Everybody ready to vote? Switch your microphone off if you're voting for the motion.
So that's the reverse again, is it?
No.
I don't think.
You said switch it off before we.
Sorry. Switch, mute. Unmute. I'm looking at microphones with a little cross on them, so I mean to switch the cross off. So, yeah.
So we have everyone unmuted, so that would mean everyone's in favour of the motion.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anybody against?
Okay.
No, that's carried. Now we go to the permit for 16.6 is the permit for the proportion of Wynarling Road, and that's Director of Development and Environmental Services.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is pretty straightforward. This report is where we have applied to council for exclusive permit to use portion of Old Wynarling Road south of Overflow Road. Aaron and myself did inspect the road. The land that abuts all this road is all owned by Allens, and even if they didn't, it wouldn't be landlocked. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but the recommendation basically proposes to go to public consultation. If there's no objections to it, that we grant a permit for 5 years, keeping in mind that it is exclusive use of that portion of road.
Any questions, Director Rocky? If not, I'd like somebody to move that recommendation.
Yeah, I'm happy to move.
Councillor Jackson's moved it. Is there a wish to speak to it?
Yes.
I have spoken with Michael Allen just regarding it. He's quite happy because I was sort of a bit at the end of it. People have got to go through his own private laneway anyway if they want to go through onto the whatever road that one is. But he's quite happy for, if somebody was having to move heavy machinery through there or whatever, it's only a phone call, just so that they know that somebody's going through. That's all it is. So I'm happy to move it.
Good. Is there a second to Councillor Oliver? You got your microphone right?
Yes, I'll second that.
Wish to speak to it?
No.
Any further speakers?
Councillor Hanneman.
Councillor Hanneman.
Now that we haven't got a Border Chronicle, how do we go about public consultation for this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it will have to be an advertisement in the Advertiser. It's a paper that circulates the district, unless we change our policy. But I think we're directed to advertise in a newspaper under the Local Government Act. I think we're working towards potentially in the future maybe be able to utilise an Narracourt paper that's just commenced.
Fine, thank you.
I've got,
Now, what are we up to? We've got the mover and a seconder. Is there any further speakers? If not, ready to vote, unlock your microphones if you're voting yes. That looks to be unanimous, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yes, that's unanimous. That's carried. Now, 17 is reports of officers for information. And we've got the CEO's meetings and events. Any questions to the CEO? No. Well, 17.2 is the Director of Corporate Community Services meeting and events. Any questions to them? To him? And 17.3 is we've got the DIO meetings and events. Any questions? And 17.4 is the works update. Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a lot to add to that. I'd just like to point out that we were successful in receiving the federal grant of 104,000 through the remote airstrip funding round 7. So that will go towards resealing the airstrip next financial year. But happy to answer any questions to do with the report.
Any questions directed to Aaron? There's a fairly comprehensive report there.
Mr Mayor, could we just go back to 17.2? I'd be interested if Kingsley could provide a bit of an update on the caravan park.
Can you do that, Kingsley?
What sort of update would you like at the moment, Mr. Councillor McInerney?
Well, I guess with a lot of the other caravan parks opening throughout the state, whether we are doing the same, and if we are we able to provide all the necessary facilities to be able to facilitate that?
Thank you for your question. What we can do is to say that the caravan park has been operating in a very busy environment since the beginning of the coronavirus, taking all the essential workers coming in. So we've had most of our cabins booked out for the duration, and we have the cabins booked out through to the end of June, would you believe. We're able to exercise social distancing and all the requirements that are being detailed from the state government in relation to maintaining a facility and maintaining all the health standards and restrictions within the park. So for us, it's been a good journey to date, and it's been uninterrupted, and there's been a demand from essential workers coming in and occupying the park. So in the meantime, there's been a lot of work going on in parks, in the Parks and Gardens area, cleaning up all the facilities, cleaning up the housing, and there's probably a park that's receiving a lot of very complimentary comments about the standard and quality of its presentation, and also for its living environment.
Excellent, thank you very much. Maybe we might get a return on our investment a bit quicker than expected.
Just through the mayor, I think that council would be very surprised that we're actually generating a lot of interest in the park, and if this is what it's going to be like at a very low point, then we can expect in a couple of years' time to be returning some sort of return back on our investment.
Thank you, Kingsley. Any further? Moving on, 17.5 is the Developmental Environmental Services Officer meetings and events. And now we go to 17.6, and that is coal managed prescribed burn developmental environmental services officer. Rocky.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, what I've tried to do here is just give you a bit of an overview of what I've been trying to achieve by facilitating this coal burn. There have been some barriers, and I suppose there's been some indecisive decisions, or not decisions, basically understanding of who's responsible for what. I did have a meeting with the Regional Bushfire Prevention Officer and some other staff who had provided a report, which is attached. Also with DipTi, as there was some uncertainty who is responsible for the road reserve. I have confirmed that again today, where I just wanted some further clarification from Victor Ling, simply because my understanding was that the Duke's Highway was controlled access. Recently, when we referred an application, they made reference to being a controlled access. So I just wanted some further clarification from that, and he is going to provide that. Also, I think the thing to understand here is for fire prevention, we don't need approval from Native Veg, as their approvals are really for ecological purposes. So then you need a management plan. Also, consulted with Department of Environment and Water, and they really don't want to know about it unless it's for environmental purposes. So one of the key things that's come out of it is CFS and their volunteers aren't really keen to be involved in voluntary burns, which causes some issues for us, because where do you get the resources to do it? I think it's a bit different than the old days where landowners would probably do it. We certainly can't do that these days. So, and even the local brigade, speaking to the group officer, he had some reservations, certainly, of doing any more than one burn. That in itself concerns me a little bit. And also then the ongoing management of these areas, certainly once they're burnt with the weed control and whatever. So it's going to take some resources. It is for information. There are a couple of options there, but if you did proceed with any options, you probably would have to rescind any other motion. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
Just before we go into questions, Councillor Mock had a proposal of putting up a motion without notice, and does he want to go into talking about that now, or do we want to suspend standing orders to have a bit of a talk about this? Councillor Mock.
I'm happy to talk to it now while I'm sitting, but still in standing orders.
All right. We will. You put up your proposal, because I think there's an email gone around to most councillors, but I'm not proposing to take it as a motion tonight. I'm proposing to take it as a motion on notice for the next council meeting.
Yes, I agree with that. There's been new information conveyed to me by the CEO and Mr. Callisto, so I'm happy to leave that until the next meeting. I do have a question for Mr. Callisto.
All right, go ahead.
The question is, that section of road which it looks like is proposed has got a lot of annual grass on it. How was that chosen? And it is different to the section that I suggested, which is east of Wirriga on the north side of the road, which may need environmental consent.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, the question one is, how was it selected? Well, that was basically an on-site inspection undertaken by the Regional Prevention Officer, Jason Druitt, and also our local prevention officer, came up with a section. If this was to proceed, we would certainly have to check if there are any native grasses or whatever. So that was simply undertaken. This has sort of only gone through the first phase of this project. They believe that this was a reasonable location to undertake a burn. Whether it's right, wrong or whatever, that hasn't been confirmed or finalised. It doesn't mean it's going to be right in that location.
The CEO would like to say something.
I was just going to make a comment in regards to the motion on notice. The conversations that we've most recently had were about controlled access on major national highways. And apparently there's a map that shows which areas come under controlled access and which ones don't. If they are under controlled access, Rocky, correct me if I'm wrong, if they are under controlled access, it would actually not be council's responsibility, but the responsibility would sit with DIPTI. So it would be really important to be actually able to have access to which sections of this highway will we even be responsible for. So my suggestion would potentially be the motion that you currently have as a potential motion or notice may change quite significantly between now and the next council meeting. So I don't know if you want to hold it as a notice on motion or foreshadow it as a notice on motion in this council meeting, or just hold on to it and then submit one in time for the next council meeting.
Councillor Mock, you answer that question?
There were some problems with that recording microphone at that point, but yes, I accept that it may well be modified. So depending on what information comes in, we can remove it and I resubmit in time for the next meeting.
Yeah,
I think that's the best option. You have to put it in 5 days before the next meeting. I think that's one of the requirements.
yes.
So I think that's the best option, because I think we need to be have a bit more information on this so we can make it a more of a informed vote.
Yes, my intent with the motion that without notice that I put through today was to close off, but if there are some ways where this may happen, then let's not close off yet.
Everybody happy with that explanation? Unmute your mic if you want to say something. We haven't got a motion to be talking on, so, but I will allow questions.
No questions?
No.
No, I'm Councillor Jackson. No, I'm happy for that to disappear at the moment. You know, it just seems that everybody's sort of ducking for cover, and I can't understand how Dip Dye can have control over some sections and not all sections. So it seems a bit Irish to me.
Councillor Hanneman, you're unlocked the microphone.
I was going to ask a question. I wonder if other councils are trying to do this too and having the same barriers in front of them, whether this could be an LGA issue, because I know other councils, well, I've heard of other councils like doing it. So perhaps we're trying to fight it on our own, and perhaps we all got together and put it and see whether it's other councils have the same issue, because that's my opinion.
I'm happy to ask the question of our Limestone Coast colleagues and see if anybody else has experienced the same, and we'll share whatever information comes to light in the meantime with everyone before we come to the next council meeting.
Yeah, it might be we may be just going a bit early, but I still very strongly believe it should happen.
I've got a few views on this myself, but I can't lead from the chair, so I can't say anything. So we'll move on. Everybody agree with that? 17.7's development activity. 18 is late items. Now, the only late items I'm going to take is they have to be through the CEO before the meeting. Anybody any late items that come through the CEO?
We have some in
I can't see all the...
I have noted an item that Councillor Penniman has raised, which we can address in confidence. And Councillor Henneman had raised the question of the local newspaper prior to this meeting, which we were going to, which we can talk about under urgent items under number 20 when we come back out of confidence.
Right, so moving on, we need to go into confidence. And so I'd like somebody to move the recommendation that we go into confidence. Councillor Penniman moved, Councillor McInerney has seconded. All those in favour? Unlock your mics.
We've got...
That's unanimous.
Everyone, thank you.
Thank you. We're in. In a second, if we keep that in confidence until the deal is finalised. As all those in favour, unlock your microphones.
Can I just ask one question before we vote?
Just a minute.
If if
Yeah.
it doesn't with budget, if Aaron finds out that the truck, they have one that's there and it's dearer, do we have to come back to get approval of going over budget?
Don't believe so.
We're taking the report to council anyway, so council would do that at that time.
No worries.
Right, all those in favour have unlocked their microphones, and that looks like it's unanimous, so that is carried. Now, we go to urgent items, and oh no, sorry, that one about Diana.
Yes.
CEO's got something that Councillor Penniman's brought up.
Councillor Penniman raised a question about some untidy blocks, and if we wanted to discuss those items, I would suggest that we move into confidence first, because otherwise we would potentially be breaching a matter that concerns personal affairs of a person. So there should be a motion up on the screen. But if we could have anybody moving, that will move into confidence to discuss untidy blocks. And then we can have a discussion of that item.
Right, I haven't got that up on the screen here, so we need a motion, a recommendation that we go into confidence to talk about untidy blocks.
Yes, I'll move that, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Penniman. Councillor Hanneman.
Yep.
All those in favour, unlock your microphones. Yes, that's unanimous. The only one we'll discuss, and that is the
a few items up on there. If Bandy, would you mind scrolling? There we go. Councillor Hanneman had the matter of the newspapers.
Who was it now? Brought it about the newspaper. You brought it up with the CEO. Councillor Hanneman?
Yes, I did. I wrote to the CEO. It's been brought up by ratepayers. As we very well know, we haven't got a local paper, and that's showing with getting consultation. We have to go to the advertiser, which I can imagine be extremely expensive. I have a connection to the person that's getting to the Narra Court paper. Perhaps we should get involved with it, and at least getting part of it or a couple of pages in there, because I don't know, but I have a feeling that the Border Chronicle may be dead and buried. So I think we should get involved in the Narra Court paper.
Just an update from the previous email that I've sent. So we have spoken with the Narra Court paper on a number of occasions. The first edition that came out last week didn't really circulate in the district here, but that was really just because they were just starting out. They produced 1,700 copies and sold out. Compared to that, the Herald only produced 1,500 copies, so that's good. Last week is only sold in Narra Court. This week's edition, which will be out tomorrow, will also only be in Narra Court. But they are quite interested in coming into the Tatiara as well. They don't quite know at this stage yet how many copies they would distribute in Bordertown, but we have certainly been talking with them, and we've been talking with the person who's been setting up the paper about sections that would cover the Tatiara as well. So Michael White is the person who's organised it, and he's really interested in listening to what the community is after, and he's got a couple of options in mind of how the Tatiara might be covered by the paper. So we'll catch up either on the phone or through a video conference in the coming days and work something out.
Is available in Padthaway.
Pardon me?
It is available in Padthaway at the general store.
Oh, good, excellent. Good.
As this discussion comes up for information, unless somebody wants to put a motion on the, but I would probably prefer it to come as a notice of motion for the next meeting. But does anybody want to know any more information at this stage?
I just have one question, Mr. Mayor, for the CEO.
Yes, Councillor McNaney.
I was under the impression talking to people in that industry that Fairfax Media were running the papers and they were receiving quite substantial government grants, federal government grants, to maintain papers in the regional areas. Now, I'm not sure whether in fact that is still correct. If it is, and they don't continue with the paper in Bordertown, then they will lose some of that funding. But I'm not sure whether that's factual anymore. I'm just wondering whether the CEO may be able to look into that for us.
So last year, the Fairfax papers initially were sold to Channel 9. No, I can't remember. They sold, and they were sold from there again to Australian Community Media. And Australian Community Media are the ones who were running the Herald and the Border Chronicle and the paper in Murray Bridge and all those papers. The Wynarling Times was the other one that they were running, and they've shut all of those down. So even the Wynarling Times, which is the three times weekly paper, was shut down. So while the media release that ACM put out at the time indicates that that is a temporary closure, I think there is significant risk attached with the smaller papers that they might be permanently lost. So I think it's a really exciting time that Narracourt has established their own paper, and we're certainly really keen to work with them to see if we can somehow get coverage of the Tatiara in that paper as well.
Right, Councillor Guzens, something?
So?
Councillor Guzens got a microphone unlocked. No, it's locked now, right. That was mainly for information, but I won't take it. I won't take a motion. If you want a motion on the books, you'll have to bring it in as a notice of motion for next meeting. Now we've got a couple of recent funding announcements to make.
And I think they've already been covered just before. Mr. Hillier had covered the airfield one, and Councillor Langley had covered the Show Society one. So thank you. It's just a quick update if councillors had missed the announcement on the ABC the other day.
Right. The other thing is the Volunteers Week, which is next week, and we had a meeting today of the committee, and we've selected 4 recipients to be awarded a Volunteers Award. Joe Nixon from the Bordertown Show Springs Festival, Brooke Douglas from South Australian Ambulance, Cynthia Bruin from Keith Ambulance, and Sonia Smith from the swimming and netball from Keith, swimming, netball and sports and recreation and cricket. So I congratulate those 4 people, and they will be receiving their awards when we have a, hopefully the COVID-19 lockdown will be opened up, and there is a National Volunteers Award night on the December the 5th. So you can do that one. Yes. We've also got another one here from the Horsham City Council.
We had just a recent item of communication from the Horsham Royal City, who are undertaking some advocacy work for the retention of the overland passenger train service. They are just suggesting that if we were interested in supporting the advocacy campaign for the overland passenger service, to write to the relevant ministers in Victoria and South Australia.
If there's no further questions, I'll declare the meeting.
Excuse me, Mayor, I just had one, please.
Yes.
Now, today on our agenda, we've only got the very abbreviated format there with the recommendations, etc. on it. I've got my other laptop open with the agenda on it as such. Now, is there any way that if we go through our agenda items on our iPad prior to the meeting and make annotations, are we able to send that? I mean, I've tried emailing that to my laptop, but nothing has transferred across as far as my annotations and noting. Is there any way that we can do that? I mean,
just one thing. This is just for a discussion, so I'll declare the meeting closed, and then we'll talk. Stay online and talk like that. So I declare the meeting closed.